so welcome back to Yes, You Mei, the my journey through the Mei Feng crew, and just some of my thoughts, and hopefully you can pick up something useful from this series. So last time we talked about Mei Feng herself, and then we talked about her crew or her box set, and kind of how that box set plays. But now, let's say you've been in a few games with Mei Feng, and you're starting to learn her, you're starting to get really comfortable with the crew. Now you're starting to look at some of the expansions and other options for Mei Feng. Now, when I look at Mei Feng, playing a Mei Feng list, my mindset is as follows. I want, typically, well, the Emberling, so we know the Emberling is going to stay. And I also want maybe 1 to 2 rail walk points as a minimum. Ideally, the more rail walk points you have, the better. So I might keep, say, one of these rail workers, for example. And then from there, I really start to look at other options and what else I want to build into the crew. Now, one of the things that I did very early on was, as much as I love my man Kang right here, and we talked a little bit about how cool he is with Mei Feng, you can replace Kang as your secondary hitter. And one of the things I would highly recommend looking at is this guy here, the Rail Golem, who is gigantic, and I'm glad I got him in frame, so that's cool. But he is a guy that is going to be a massive beat stick. He does so many things very well at 1 soulstone more that I have a very hard time passing him up, and he is crazy fun to play. The Rail Golem has its own kind of different flavor and synergy with Mei Feng, in that it is a construct, so it becomes a rail walk point, and a very nice one at that, because it's a 50 mil base, so it gives her even a little bit more room or attacking options when she's doing her attack runs. It's also a very nasty beat stick on its own, with its paired weapons, its ability to use the burning tokens, and use and generate burning tokens for itself, to give itself things like pluses on its attacks, on its damage. It can even use it to use burning tokens to give itself extra attacks, or even a 1-action charge. And the really nice thing about the Rail Golem is it can give itself reactivate via one of its 0 spells called Pain Train. So, highly recommend looking at the Rail Golem, and a lot of Mei Feng players don't leave home without the Rail Golem. So now that gives me 2 rail walk points. If I wanted a 3rd rail walk point and build a little bit more utility into the crew, then I might consider adding one of these Metal Gammon. So, a Metal Gammon is also very nice for a Mei Feng crew, in that Metal Gammon are very survivable, and they're very protective of their masters. You might have a Metal Gammon come in, and you can assign it to any of your significant models, but one of the more common things to do with it is to assign it directly to Mei Feng, since she'll be probably using it as a rail walk target and want to stay in close operation with it. It does have companion with its protected model, so it can open up a companion chain there. It's got great armor ability, it can heal itself back up, and it's just overall very good model. So at 5 soulstones, or by training out one of these rail workers, I can take a Metal Gammon, and that gives Mei Feng even more survivability as well. So you can do that. The other thing you can do is you can bring in this guy, Willie. And again, these lists will work for either faction, by the way. So you can play this as a 10 Thunders crew or as an Arcanist crew. Now, Willie the Demolitionist is a very fun model. He gives Mei Feng a couple of things that she currently lacks. Like, first off, she gives him some range, and she gives him some board control, in that in the form of his demo charges. And then when he dies, he has the dropped load ability as well. So these are some great additions to the Mei Feng crew. I'd like to cover some of them in detail. Let's see, what am I looking at here for points? So I've got 6, 16, 25, 27. So now I'm at a 30 soulstone value here by playing this crew and taking Mei Feng with full with a full cache of 8 soul stones. And this is a very balanced crew. In fact, this is my what I consider my my tactical crew, or the crew that, you know, if I have to play one list, this is the crew that can get most of it done. It comes with 3 rail walk points. I've got ranged, I've got some board control, I've got some support, and I've got some protection. So I like this list. I like how it works on the board, and I would say at least half of the games that I've played with Mei Feng have been with this particular crew and this build. So yeah, that's what we'll look a little bit at some of these models in detail then. Okay, so first up is the big meaty rail golem. This is a 9 soulstone model, and rarely do I recommend playing expensive models, but this guy, trust me, is going to be worth it. Rail golems are brilliant. They're amazing enough on their own to even be considered outside of a Mei Feng crew. If you're just taking an Arcanist crew and you really want a versatile, operates alone type of beat stick, it's still going to be reasonably good at that. One of the main mechanics of the Rail Golem is its ability to generate and accumulate burning tokens. So, for example, when the Rail Golem activates, it's going to generate a burning token. It takes 2 walks, it's going to generate a second burning token. And as it attacks things, it can, for example, trigger off a ram, the ability to give itself another burning token. Now, the Rail Golem is allowed to ignore the first 3 burning tokens it gains in a turn. And managing your burning tokens on your Rail Golem and choosing the appropriate time to cast your 0-action Pain Train is going to be critical. Some other sources of burning tokens that Mei Feng might typically consider would be Rail Workers. They can give the the Rail Golem a burning token off of one of their 0 abilities. The Emberling can also kind of, via sacrificing itself, can give him 3 burning tokens, which is nice. That would basically mean that it could almost guarantee that it would have a reactivate that turn. It can also just attack him too and do 1 damage, because every time the Rail Golem suffers damage, it's also going to generate a burning token. So with its burning token mechanic, its paired attacks, its ability to charge on a 1, give itself pluses to damages, it's a very strong model. It's also armor 2. It's also 9 wounds. It also has 2 0 actions, so it can even vent steam if you have a high enough tome to do that. So that, again, that's where that 8 tome comes into play. We talked about possibly Kang using that to give his rousing speech, but imagine a 4-inch aura coming off of this guy, and that becomes pretty dangerous. You might even consider, one of the other things I do with the Rail Golem is I'll typically put it in a Ramos crew now, because the mobile toolkit can give it the tome that it needs for Vent Steam, and now it's generating a Vent Steam on a Ramos crew, something that Ramos does not have access to otherwise. So that's how awesome the Rail Golem is. I mean, it can get in, it can attack, it can spread burning tokens around, and this thing does hit quite hard. It's really, for me, it's an always consider on a Mei Feng crew. Okay, next up is my man Willie, the Demolitionist. Very fun model to play, you guys. 6 soul stones. This guy's a steal. He's kind of like a smarter man's Papa Loco, if you will. Not as fast and obeyable as Loco is. Not quite as dangerous all the time as Loco is, but he's a little bit more controlled, and in my opinion, that makes this guy even more dangerous. So, Willie has the ability to do to generate blasts on the move via his Wheelbarrow of Doom ability that he has. He has the ability to strike targets out of his line of sight using his, basically it's a throw dynamite move. Where's his card? I forget what they call that. It might be a demolition strike. So he can generate blasts off of that. And one of the other cool things that Willie can do is he can drop a charge within 4 inches of him on a 0. And this cool ability means that he can start controlling the board, because he's going to set up charges in areas on the board where your opponent is not going to want to move into for fear of setting that charge off. It's a 3 damage off of that. Or if they flip a Joker, this becomes a 5 damage 5 pulse. So these things become very dangerous. Willie is blast resistant 3, so that helps a lot because he will be taking wounds from himself. He is a man rolling around with dynamite, after all. He also has the ability to throw dynamite in combat and generate a trigger which would cause friendly models to move away, which is kind of a cool trick to do for helping push models into or out of combat and help. Again, this is plays into Willie's board control. So Willie is a very strong piece. He gives Mei Fang some added versatility, some balance to her crew with regards to the range and board control, and he is just really fun to play. One of the cool things to do with Willie is, when he dies and he has his dropped load, which means he starts dropping blast markers, which will do like I think 3 damage to whoever they hit. And you start flipping cards and say you get the first blast for free, and then the next blast is 7 plus the number of blasts generated. So then you flip an 8. You can also cheat this, by the way. Then you would get another blast marker touching the first one. You flip a 9, 10, 11, so forth. So if you've got a lot of high cards and you need to hit a bunch of stuff in a row, even having Willie die can be a very good thing. So Willie, another strong member of the crew. He's an always consider for me. He's one of those that will get subbed out if I need an additional rail walker point, or if I need to build a little more specialized crew. But Willie is a blast to play, and he can be very addicting to take on your lists as well. Okay, so finally you have the Metal Gammon, which is also part of these new releases. The Metal Gammon are, first and foremost, they are protective style models. And the thing that I like about these models is it plays into the whole Yes, You Mei thing, in that they are defensive models, but you really do have to set them up and properly prepare in order to get the most use out of them. They are armor 2, 6 wounds. They are 5-inch walk, so they're a little bit faster than the rail worker, and that's where most people will draw comparisons, because they fit that. They sort of fit that same 5 soulstone niche in terms of a rail walk point, but they're, instead of being heavy hitters like the rail worker is, these guys are more of kind of utility protection models. So couple things that the Metal Gammon have is they have the in trouble ability for a 0, which would mean if their master or if their protected model is in melee, they can charge that model for a 0, which is really nice. Then they have a couple of really cool 1 actions. They have Hard Case, which requires a very low card. But what the nice thing about Hard Case is that this is a 3-inch aura. That means that anytime friendly models within that 3-inch aura take damage or suffer wounds, the Metal Gammon can suffer 2 of the wounds for them. That doesn't just apply to its master or its companion model. So, for example, if I have Kang in here, and let's say Sword Vic here is doing some damage to both models, the Metal Gammon can actually absorb up to 2 wounds from each of those attacks. So that's quite nice. They also have the Reforge ability, which means that they give themselves a healing flip with a plus. So, as they're designed for taking damage and then healing themselves back up and continuing to absorb damage from their protected model. They come with companion protected model, like I was saying before, so in the case of Mei Fang, you can do a companion chain like that with the Emberling and the Metal Gammon. They also have They also are significant only though when they're within 4 inches of their protected model. So that's one thing to bear in mind. So if you're moving the metal gammon up the field as a rail walk point, it's not going to be significant when it's 6 to 8, 10, however many inches it is away. So if it's the front of the rail walk point, which often it may be, it's not going to be able to do like drop a piece of rail for Mei's scheme, for example. That said, it might walk up and then do its hard case. Mei Feng comes up here via her rail walk, and let's say she decides to get stuck in instead of rail walking back out. If she gets stuck in, and this guy's got hard case on, and she's got her iron skin on, now Mei Feng becomes very hard to kill. So this is one of the nice things that you can do with a metal gammon. Another thing to do with a metal gammon, though, is, hey, if it can protect anybody, why not protect that guy? Now you've got a potentially disgusting situation going on where you have armor 2 on this guy, who's also taking burning tokens when he gets attacked, and he can transfer a couple of his wounds over to the metal gammon should he get into trouble. So that's a particularly nasty pair. You might even do something like this. Let's say we put Willie in. You stick the metal gammon attached to Willie, knowing that Willie's going to take some wounds on his own. You might even stick the Emberling in, kind of run them as a pair 2 to give him some protection from vent steam, and he would still be able to throw his dynamite outside of that at -2 CB. So I know that went really fast, but there are so many things to consider with Mei Feng. That's kind of what this series is about. So this episode, I really just wanted to talk about some of the new releases and the new stuff that you would consider taking for Mei Feng. These models obviously give Mei Feng different options, and in some cases arguably better options depending on what your strats and schemes are. So bear that in mind. These are fun models, not just to play, but they're also very fun models to paint, and they just make for a very thematic, very lively Mei Feng crew. So that's it for this episode. We did start from new releases, and we're going to start working our way backwards through other options for the Mei Feng crew. And I appreciate you guys watching, and I will catch you on the next one. Thank you.